Ooh. Yo guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video. So today is the first episode of my NQT diary series. Now my plan with this is that at the end of every week, hopefully, some weeks will be busier than others admittedly, I'm going to shoot a video similar to this one that you're watching right now, talking a little bit about my experiences of that week as an NQT, all of the successes I have and all of the issues and the difficulties that I face. As you can see, I have just finished work. It is Friday. It is today marks the end of my first full week as a qualified teacher, and it's been a good one. And that's what today's video is about. Today I am going to be breaking down how the start of my first year of teaching is going. As you can see, I have literally just come back from work. I've walked in the door, so I'm going to go get changed and then we'll get into the video. Right, let's do it, guys. Right, much better. Out of the work clothes. Good. Refreshed. I like it. Right guys, so it is now Friday. I have literally just finished my first full week as a teacher, as a newly qualified teacher. And basically this video is going to be me talking about what I have experienced so far as an NQT, what I did to help transition the children from their lovely summer holidays of freedom into school life again, and basically giving you guys advice or talking about the things I've done, the things I would do better, the things I think I've done that have really worked, and how the children have responded to it all. So that's basically what today's video is going to be all about. So technically I started last week, but the Monday and the Tuesday were inset days. We had a day looking at policies and going over paperwork. We had an ed site come in and talk about child cognition and how we can perhaps speak with our children, you know, if we think that they're having a bad day, how we can help them through it, all those kind of things. So it was really great, really useful to talk about, and we also did like dates for the diary for the year and all that kind of stuff, which was really nice actually, because it meant that for everyone, especially for me being new to the school, I was able to like ease myself into the routine, see what, you know, the expectations were, talk to the other teachers, and actually I was able to touch base with my TAs and get the classroom sorted so that I was happy and they were happy and we all knew how the classroom was going to work. Then on Wednesday the children all came back. Now for me again, because I'm new to the school, new to the children, and admittedly I did go in before the summer to sort of touch base with them, to get to know them a little bit better, to do sort of transition lessons with them. I'm still going to be very new to them. They don't really know me that well. So Wednesday and Thursday especially were kind of just me allowing them to get to know me, to relax into their school life again, and just to sort of get back into the rhythm of being at school. And I think it really helped. So when they first came in on that Wednesday, basically I just let them sort of go have a free-for-all, essentially. Managed, obviously, but I basically said to them, right, you have sort of 20 minutes, half an hour before assembly to talk to each other, because, you know, a lot of them, and they all live in the same village, most of them, but a lot of them may not have seen each other over the summer, and I know that coming all back, 25, 30 kids coming back into one room, having spent the last 6 weeks doing not a lot, would just be mayhem. So I very much let them chat to each other, talk about their summer, and explore the classroom, right? Because it's new, I'm new, I changed the classroom about a lot. I added different things, I took some things away. So I just wanted them to explore, get those natural curiosities out, and yeah, just to really relax into their first term. Now, to be honest, I actually am really glad that I did that. I also allowed them to sit wherever they wanted for the lessons. That was beneficial for them because it kind of gave them, you know, it meant that they had a bit more trust in me because I wasn't being really stringent with them, I wasn't being really strict. It meant that they were a bit more relaxed and they didn't feel like they were being forced to sit next to someone they don't like. And it also meant that I could see where friendships were strong, where friendships were weak, which children to definitely not sit next to each other, and which children that I might want to sit together for certain lessons. So beneficial for me, beneficial for them, and yeah, it was just a really nice easy start into the term. The other thing I did, which the TAs said that they thought was good, and having spoken to the head, he agreed to too, is I very much set my expectations out early. So without kind of being like the foot of law, so to speak, you know, I discussed with them my expectations for their behaviour, and I went over the behaviour chart that we've got in the classroom. I spoke about expectations for them in terms of their being independent learners, so, you know, using the resources they've got, being respectful, so making sure that, you know, they're sharpening their pencils, they're not throwing and breaking pencils, and making sure their equipment is all tidy. Just, you know, the things that I'm going to pick up on as time goes on, I kind of laid that out on the line straight away. And part of that was trust, right? So I said to them, I'm going to trust you because I want to gain your trust, but if you know, let me down, then I'm going to have to be a bit more strict with you. So I'm happy with you sitting next to your friends, but if you start talking, then I'll move you. And, you know, they just had the summer, so inevitably they all started talking, and so I moved them, but that expectation had been set straight away, and I think it kind of eased them into things, which was great. So actually I think having that sort of slightly easier first few days back in was really useful, and it actually meant that they've settled really well. And again, the head has come up to me and he said, like, you know, you've done a really good job. So it's good. So if you are in a position where you are a student or you are an NQT and you're watching this, don't sort of hype yourself up and don't get worried necessarily about trying to get straight into the curriculum. You know, you're not going to have very effective teaching, and they're not going to learn very well if they're worried, they're anxious about their new working environment. And there were some children that I kind of had to walk them into the classroom and sort of, you know, show them around because they were a little bit nervous to start back again. So have that courage to sort of allow the children to really settle into their environment, and if needs be, take a day or two off for settling before you start actually like getting into the really meaty teaching bit. So now we come on to my first full week as a teacher. Now the good thing is, because I'd already done and put the effort in to try and help them settle in and talk with each other and relax in the last 3 days of last week, this Monday they kind of came in and instantly knew roughly what they were expected to do. And so actually we've had a really good week. I am absolutely shattered now, don't get me wrong, but I think that's kind of partly come from the fact that over the summer I've gone from not having to deal with children at all to now dealing with them constantly. So, but no, it's been a really good start to the week, and yeah, it's just been a really positive experience. So one piece of advice that I would give you is to try and really take advice from your head, your teachers and your TAs as you go. This week, pretty much every day, I've caught like the maths lead and I've gone, oh, can I ask you a question please? Or yeah, I've seen their head and I'm like, do you mind if I have 5 minutes of your time? Because honestly, they don't mind. Like, they'd much rather you ask, and I'm a strong believer in the idea that there isn't such a thing as a stupid or a silly question. They'd much rather you ask and you quickly make a few notes so that you know exactly what you're doing, than kind of like scratching your head, scratching your chin, kind of acting but really not being entirely sure that you're doing it right. Now, one thing I have noticed, which is quite natural, you know, you are the person who is stepping into the environment. The environment's not new, you are. And that's what you've kind of got to remind yourself. So there have been lots of times I've been sat in meetings, or I've been sat in the staff room at lunch, for instance, and people have been talking about specific assemblies and specific routines that happen in the school. And I'm kind of sat there like, what are you talking about? So don't stress yourself out about it, just ask. Yeah, it might seem to them as though they're confidently talking about it, but you're new to the environment, so ask questions. So if they're kind of like, they're talking about something that you have no idea about, just sorry guys, can you just, what are you talking about? So one of the things that I think is also really important is if you're in a position where you are either an NQT or you've just started your course, pretty much every single time you'll have been asked, what kind of teacher do you want to be? And if you haven't, it's probably been going through your head. Now, for me, I'm very much about wanting to provide real experiences for the children. So there are going to be some experiences that they cannot experience. But for the most part, you know, if we're doing, let's say we're looking at, I don't know, rivers, like I want them to look at a river and see what a river looks like. If we're looking at, I don't know, science experiments, I want to run a science experiment with them. If we're looking at plants, I want to plant plants with them. I want to actually have them handle flowers and look at them, because it's one of the, for me at any rate, it's that these are skills and experiences that they may never have had before, and so it's going to be a fantastic way for them to learn, and yeah, it's just a really good experience for them. So one of the things that I've done is for pretty much everything that I've introduced, I have tried to create some kind of activity for them to get involved with. Now, don't get me wrong, not all of these activities have panned out quite how I expected them to, but for the most part they have been a hit. So for English, my book of, not my book of choice, the class book that I'm reading with them and that we're focusing on for English is The Jungle Book. And so the first day that we looked at The Jungle Book, I got them to sort of think about the main characters in The Jungle Book, and then we made clay models. And so, you know, in small groups they came up, they made some clay models of specific characters of The Jungle Book, and now they're going to be painting them. Really fun, interactive, and it's a bit of a wow for them to kind of get stuck into it. And they're year 3 and 4, right? So they loved it, like getting clay all over their hands and making these funky models. It was a hit. So in my topic, we are looking at rivers, basically at landforms, right? Rivers, well, I think they call it settlements, but rivers, volcanoes, oceans, mountains, all those kind of things. And so what I did is I set up an artificial river in the classroom. One suggestion is make sure you brief your TA first. Now, I did do this, but I did this about 20 minutes before we were about to do it. And her face was, what? Now, the river worked out really well. The only thing I didn't expect is the reactions of the children. I've done this in the past when I was training as a teacher, and it was always a hit, but there were a few slightly less mature year 3s that I teach that literally couldn't contain themselves, and they were basically jumping up and down, and they were poking the soil in the river, and they were screaming, and it kind of got a bit manic. The year 4s were really engaged, and actually half the year 3s were also really engaged in it all, and I was able to get good conversation out of them, and I was able to ask really good questions, and they asked me questions back, which was fantastic. I think the only thing that I would have changed is I would have been a bit more selective as to where I put specific children. You get what I mean. And in science, we're looking at plants, and again, I can't really think of anything worse than just staring at a book and looking at flowers and plants and being asked to label them. So I decided that we would create our own diaries, so we made a little diary, so you're hitting your DT. So we made a little diary that they got to decorate, hitting your art. And then what we also did was we planted some broad beans, hitting your science. So we planted broad beans using a plastic cup, a bit of cotton wool. They got to plant their broad beans, water them, and then they got to write about it. And obviously we drew some diagrams, and I spoke about the life cycle of the bean, and they got to have input on you know, drawing certain parts of it. And then they created this nice picture in their book of you know, their bean plant. And then basically until the beans are fully grown, they can input all of the steps into their diary. So if I noticed, for instance, that the roots have started to grow, I'll get them all to take their little pot with their bean in it, and they can have a look at what's going on, they can see the growth, they can see how it's changed, and they can write in their diary. So it's a really nice journey, and it's a really nice learning path. And again, they physically are watching a bean grow, and it's not just a 2D picture on a book and on a page in a book, and they're just kind of staring at it. So really, really good idea, and they loved it. And I've had pretty much every child at some point this week come up to me with their pot and go. So in terms of interacting with the children, in terms of kind of getting them on their sort of learning journey, I feel like I've hit the ground running. I feel like they're all doing really well. So it's a positive experience. Yeah, it's good. I enjoy it. In terms of things to make sure that you're aware of, and the things that I've kind of learned over the week, is your planning side of things and your teaching is stuff that you can very much organise, and well, not so much teaching, but your planning and all the rest of it that supports your teaching is stuff that you can organise at any time. Yeah, you can organise it after school by staying late, you can organise it on your weekends, you can do it in your lunch break if you really want to. Okay, the things that are almost more important for the children in many ways and also for your own sanity and to show your head teachers and your other classes and your other teachers, I suppose, that you're trying hard and that you've got these things in your head, is to make sure that if you've got displays, you've started putting things on the displays. If there are certain documents you need to read, you actually read them. If there's certain policies you need to make sure that you've looked at and signed, you do that. Making sure that all your books have been labelled and making sure that the children are getting homework out on time. These are the kind of things that you kind of forget about, especially as a trainee. So if you're a trainee now, try and get some experience of it. Try and set homework if you can, because 9 times out of 10 you're expected to plan and teach, and then everything else goes out the window. And from my experience, when I was a trainee, I never had to worry about labelling books and making sure that children got certain things and making sure certain displays were looking in a certain way. So making sure that when you are getting into that first week, that you constantly write a to-do list. If someone tells you something, write a to-do list. Make sure that I've printed these labels off for that. Make sure that I've done this. Make sure I've done that. Because if you forget, it will just, the pile of stuff to do will just keep on growing. Now, because you are new in the role, you've got lots of other things going on, really make the most of your TAs. So if there are jobs that you could get them to do, such as creating class lists, sticking things on the outside of books, sticking in spelling lists, those kind of things, get them on the job. As long as that you've set it up so that they know what it is that they're doing, i.e. like, if you've made sure that they know which children's names go where, if you've made sure that you've basically printed the spellings off and gone, please stick them in, they will be comfortable and confident doing it. And it's things like cutting out and sticking in and all that kind of stuff takes an awful lot of time that you as the teacher could be passing to someone else, when you need to be thinking about registers, about teaching, planning, answering emails. To then spend half an hour sticking in spellings, it's a waste of your time. So really try and communicate well with your TAs, get them on side, and use them to your advantage. Alright guys, the last thing I would say is you're still learning. It's still a learning experience. And I've had so many people, like TAs, teachers, the head, come up to me, ask me how I'm doing, oh, you're not crying yet, and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, like, it's a learning experience, and you've just got to try and fully involve yourself. You've got to try and learn as you go. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and yeah, try not to panic. If you are an NQT and you're kind of at that sort of shivering stage, it's Friday, your first week's done, and you're just ready to like hibernate, try not to worry about it. Everyone goes through the same thing, and yeah, try and just have fun with it. So that's my first week done. I know this video is kind of not the most structured. I normally like to write a list, but to be honest, I wanted it to be a little bit more organic and me to very much treat it like a diary entry. And so that may well be how these videos go. And if you like that, please let me know. If you hate this style of video and you want it to be more structured, again, put a comment down below. Right, there is only one thing that is left for me to do. Right guys, I'm going to end the video here. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope you guys have found it useful. Like I say, my intention is to do this as a weekly thing, so I'll try my best to record a video on the Friday or the Saturday, get it out to you that weekend. If they're helpful, like I say, please smash that like button. If you want to know anything specific about my first week, comment down below, and I will be putting more of these out, so in order to not miss them, please hit that subscribe button. Right guys, I'm going to enjoy my Friday, I'm going to relax, and pretty much do nothing else. Cheers guys, bye.